This video presentation is going to inform you about the good old time of the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Scientific Revolution. Warning: this video is copyright protected and you will be sentenced to life in prison for copyright of this video. Thank you and enjoy. Smiley face! Yay!
There have been many different effects on society, and they are caused by the change and innovation in history that have taken place in the many different times of the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Scientific Revolution.
Well, Renaissance, here we come! This is art from the Renaissance. This is technology from the Renaissance. And this is architecture from the Renaissance.
First things first, the Renaissance. You may think that this was the time of the knights, kings, and servants. But this was the time when people started to realize that, that things needed to be changed. For example, the art had a drastic change in the way it was made. The art was starting to be painted with oil, which took a lot of time and patience. The artist had to layer the oil many times on the canvas to make the picture look as good and realistic as possible. People also started to change the perspective of painting. The paintings were starting to have two different perspectives, linear and aerial. There was many ways to notice the differences in these two perspectives. One way was that linear had a closer view to what the artist was painting. Also, linear had a vanishing point that was generally in the middle of the painting.
The literature was another big change in the Renaissance. Shakespeare was one of the bigger changes in literature. He caused people to rethink the ways that they wrote and talked. Technology was another change in the Renaissance. Some of the new things made in the Renaissance were the printing press. The printing press allowed people to print many sheets of paper at once that will later be used for books or letters. The telescope was another thing that was built. It was built by Galileo, who used it to look at the moon and the other planets. Galileo invented the telescope to assist him in his studies of astronomy. The microscope, much like the telescope, was also invented. The microscope allowed scientists to look closely at the cells of DNA, the DNA of many different things. The microscope helped doctors understand the reason why people were getting sick. The doctor would gather DNA from a sick person and they would look at it under the microscope to see what else was there that wasn't supposed to be.
The next big thing is the Reformation. During the Reformation, the church had many changes. One of the many changes was because of Martin Luther. Martin Luther rebelled against the church because they were selling indulgences. Indulgences were a way to buy your sins away and were basically a ticket to heaven. As long as you bought an indulgence, when you committed a sin, your sin was washed away and bought you a ticket to heaven. Martin Luther was a part of the church until he found out the church was selling indulgences. Martin Luther rebelled to make this stop because the church was using the money to buy art for the cathedral. Martin Luther ended up getting the Catholic Church to reform and stop selling indulgences. From this, many more types of churches were formed and taught in different ways.
King Henry VIII reformed his country because he built a church so they could separate him and one of his many wives. He did this because he wanted more power, and whoever ran the church had power over the people. King Henry VIII thought this would be a good way to gain more power over his country and his people that lived there. King Henry VIII had many wives before he realized that he needed a church that could separate two people that are married as long as both people are at the ceremony and agree that they don't want to be together. King Henry VIII paid for this church to be built so he and his wife at the time could get divorced. He had divorced many wives because almost all of them had failed to give him the son that he had always wanted. One of his many wives gave him a son, but she died shortly after giving birth to Prince Edward. Henry wanted to give Prince Edward the throne after he died, so he began teaching Prince Edward the ways that a king should act and control the country.
The last thing is the scientific revolution. During the scientific revolution, many different things were discovered. For example, Nicholas Copernicus discovered the heliocentric theory. This means that Copernicus discovered that the sun is in the middle of the universe, not the Earth. He also discovered that all the planets orbit around the sun while the sun is stationary. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek was the first scientist to discover bacteria and protozoa. His observations helped lay the foundations for the sciences of bacteriology and protozoology. In 1680, he noticed that yeast consists of minute globular particles. William Harvey proved that the body does not make blood constantly, that the heart pumps the blood through the body. Harvey, the physician for King James I and his son Charles I, he disapproved Galen's theory that the body made new blood. Galileo made a telescope that allowed him to see the moon and other planets. He also established the modern experimental method. Galileo presented the evidence that and defended Nicholas Copernicus. Humanities Kepler proved that the planets orbit in an oval shape instead of a circle. This is called ellipse.
A lot of people started into the study of anatomy and astronomy. Anatomy is the study of the body structures of animals and humans. Astronomy is the study of space and stars. Some people started to study medicine and the effects they have on the human body. They also studied in the medical field to help find cures for diseases that may be found in the bodies of humans and animals. Some people went into physics. Physics is where scientists study about matter and the properties of matter. Da Vinci had a great effect on the scientific revolution. He built many different things that he thought would help him in his studies. He also made things that he thought would help mankind.
We hope you enjoyed our video. Yay! Wait, what? There's bloopers? Yay! The last thing is scientific revolution. During the scientific revolution, many different things were discovered. For example, Nicholas Copernicus discovered. Watch out! The sun while the sun is stationary. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek was the first scientist to observe bacteria and